Today we come together with a new vision for humanity to co-create a united Earth family. And with this vision and our shared intuition, we have the potential to bring peace on Earth to fruition. We imagine a world where we take care of all of life. And with this intention, we become beacons of light. So let's join together in manifestation to bring about societal transformation. From the heart of humanity, we come together in unity to co-create a united Earth family. From the heart of humanity, we come together in unity to co-create a united Earth family. From the heart of humanity, we come together to co-create. Let's come together, family. From the heart of humanity, we come together to co-create. Let's come together, family.
Welcome everyone to another episode of One by One and this special series Connecting the Dots. My name is Michael Kraus. Oh, I have to start over again. Give me a second. I'm just going to start here. Welcome everyone to another episode of One by One and this special series Connecting the Dots. My name is Michael Kraus. As the host, I'm truly honored to support Riane Eisler and her many initiatives on partnership culture and consciousness, inviting us into this discussion that celebrates her legacies as global changemaker, especially in the context of so many upcoming activities that involve Riane and the evolutionary leaders community. Riane Eisler, scholar, systems scientist, and best-selling author of The Chalice and the Blade, The Real Wealth of Nations, and Nurturing Our Humanity. Riane has reshaped our understanding of history, economics, and power, introducing a transformational framework, the partnership system versus the domination system. Her work has been translated into over 30 languages, featured in classrooms and global forums alike, and has inspired movements for peace, gender equity, and social healing across the world. And in today's episode, she features Diane Williams as her special guest. Diane Williams is a true catalyst for global transformation. Diane is the founder and president of the Source of Synergy Foundation, a groundbreaking organization that convenes leaders across fields to spark collective evolution. She's also the co-initiator of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, a dynamic community of spiritual and social innovators launched in collaboration with Deepak Chopra. Diane has served as chair of the NGO Committee on Spirituality, Values, and Global Concerns at the United Nations, and was honored with the Spirit of the United Nations Award for her service in weaving spiritual values into international dialogues. Through decades of leadership, she has amplified the voices of those committed to planetary awakening and has been recognized globally for her bridge building between wisdom traditions, science, and activism. Together, Diane and Riane represent a constellation of wisdom, action, and heart. Their voices carry the depth of experience and the clarity of vision needed in these pivotal times. So let's settle in as we open a dialogue on what it means to evolve, to synergize, and to shape the future with conscience and collaboration. Let's explore and celebrate the amazing legacies each of you has, as changemakers, have created for real transformative global change, and also ask about what your priorities are today. Welcome to the program, Riane Eisler and Diane Williams. So, Diane, maybe I can start with you. How would you characterize your life's work, and what have you achieved in all you have done and are still doing?
Well, thank you, Michael, and thank you for inviting me to be part of One by One. And I'm thrilled to be here with Riane Eisler and support this very important program on change makers, also later on with my beloved colleague and friend, Deborah Moldow. So this series is called Change Makers, and I think it's important that everybody feels that they can be a change maker. We're all change makers in our own way. So whether that's in your home, in your community, in your school, or in your place of work, you can be a change maker. So you can change the culture in your family, for instance. I know Riane talks a lot about that. Your workplace, you can maybe ask them to clean with environmental products. There's so many ways that we can be a personal change maker and then also a collective change maker. And there's no age on being a change maker. I remember when I was about 5 years old, I heard about the Smokey the Bear campaign, forest fire, anti-forest fire campaign. And that affected me so much that I gathered my little 5-year-old friends, and we learned about how forest fires starts and, you know, how to put them out. And we created a song. And so it's really important that children have these role models or see campaigns. I remember another one where there was a Native American walking down a highway and somebody threw some trash right in front of him and he started to cry. And I really felt that that commercial changed my consciousness about the environment and protecting the environment. And then later on, there was concerts like Live Aid that helped people in Ethiopia with hunger. And again, I think that inspired myself to be a global citizen because I saw that even as a young person, you can be empowered to make change in the world. And my whole philosophy and way that I think I organize is through creating synergy and creating partnerships. Almost my whole, career has been based on that. And even as a graduate student, I noticed when I was riding the subway in New York City, when homeless people were coming by and asking for a spare change, I felt very disempowered. Like, what do I do to support this person? And I thought of something. I was working with Ruth Messenger, who was a councilwoman, a borough president. She became the councilwoman that became borough president. And I asked if I could do a project on that, and they said, please, try that. So I created something called the Contact Card, which was a waterproof, rip-proof card that had food, clothing, access to food, clothing, shelter, and it had where homeless people can go and get these services. And so the whole idea was that we can create partnership with others, the homeless, so that we can do something. And I remember the subway poster that we put up said, don't know what to do when somebody asks you for some spare change. Why not connect people to services, food, clothing, shelter that they need? And Ruth Messenger mentioned that one time she was in the park and she had a t-shirt and they recognized that her office put out this campaign. And a homeless person said, thank you so much, because I felt it wasn't even so much I didn't know where to get the services, but it was a human contact that when somebody gave me this contact card, I felt like they cared about me. And that was creating a partnership right there. So that was really key. And I found over and over again this theme of partnership and synergy. I was in the Peace Corps in Cameroon. I remember my niece was only about 5 at the time. This was in the 90s when I was a young person. And so we had a cross-cultural exchange with her school and the school in Cameroon that, I was working with to really teach children about, how people live in other parts of the world, how they dress, with the music they listen to, with food they eat. And it really, I know she said, raised her consciousness about, she was originally just US focused, but now she's world focused. So I think we all need those opportunities in our early times. And so then I went on as an adult and I worked for the Education Center for Community Organizing, and I remember once we did a program, The Challenge of the Giuliani Administration, because Mayor Giuliani was, the mayor at that time, and we were young kind of activists, and we went to the program and we were ready to say, why are you throwing homeless people out of their transitional housing and all that? And I remember there was one young man that worked for Mayor Giuliani, and he said, this is not a case of like you know all everything and we don't. He said, come to my office and help me come up with solutions about how to support homeless people in New York City. So that kind of disarmed us because, oftentimes, we have an us versus them and not a partnership model where we can come and, come together and create solutions together. And so that's been a lot of my life. I worked at the Learning Alliance in New York City, and we had programs like a politics beyond liberal and conservative. And we did a program with our friend Diane Williams on voluntary simplicity. I worked at the Interfaith Center of New York, and we brought people from different traditions, religious and spiritual traditions together. So there's a greater understanding, again, a greater partnership. And during that time when I was working at the Interfaith Center, September 11th happened. And actually, we were practicing for an interfaith service with the president of the General Assembly and the Secretary General. Well, they weren't there at the time, but their bodyguards were there. And September 11th happened. And I remember the Secretary General's bodyguard that just wanted to kind of get a lay of the land told us what happened. And so some of us went to help. So we went to the Armory where people were being received and created something called the Kids Corner, and for the children of the victims and the people that were hurt. And again, that was an example of partnership, because I'll never forget the power of the human spirit during that moment in particular, because the firefighters and the social workers and the parents and the people that were in tragedies before, everybody came together and they wanted to help. And it was just, such a beautiful moment in such a tragedy to see that, everybody wants to come together and do what they can. And so later on, I worked with the Tribal Link Foundation, which was working to bring Indigenous peoples together in partnership. And we created a sacred place at the World Summit on Sustainable Development in South Africa. And we had people from all different Indigenous and religious traditions, again, coming together and showing the best of what they have to give. So it was fire ceremonies, water ceremonies, prayers, and meditation to really say that this part, the sacred, is really key to creating any sort of transformation. So we had meditation huts and all this. And at the UN, I helped to start a committee on spirituality, values, and global concerns. And that's something that we do. We try to start our programs with meditation and spiritual techniques, so we really can connect to other sources that we know support us and really come through. And then I'll fast forward to the Source of Synergy Foundation. And I think I was inspired to start the Source of Synergy Foundation because doing work at the UN, I noticed that a lot of conferences and committees, people were not fully present. Like even at the Commission on Human Rights that used to be often in Geneva, like people were saying the worst atrocities you can imagine, but they were checking their cell phones and not fully present. So like what really supports us in being present to each other and deeply listening. And I think that's creating synergy among ourselves. And so that's how the Source of Synergy really started. We were lucky that Deepak Chopra and the Chopra Center was our first partner. We said we were going to do work together, and the Evolutionary Leaders Circle blossomed out of that. And we started doing evolutionary leaders retreats and meetings at the Chopra Center, then later on at different places around the world and with people in all different fields. First, it was like UN representatives and social change activists, but then we said, let's actually Deborah said, let's start working with people in the consciousness movement. So we started to really target those leaders, and it's been amazing. So much has come out of it. We have our dear beloved Kurt Johnson has really helped to inspire so many synergy circles, I think more than 25 now, on so many different topics. Media is one that's helping with this program. we created a book, Our Moment of Choice, which was 44 of our revolutionary leaders coming together and really saying, okay, it's our time. It's our moment to really come together as humanity and make a change. So I think I'll stop there because I don't know how long you want us to talk about this, but that's the start.
Wow, thank you, Diane, and what an inspiration you are, and your service to humanity, and deeply grateful for your service that you have provided and still continue to provide. And now, Riane, given the character of your iconic work toward partnership, culture, and consciousness, what do you hear that parallels your own work and achievements, and how does that help you characterize your life's work and all you've been working to achieve? Is the slide how would you have in the slide how would you have characterized what you've been contributing to this whole arena of world change for so many years?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Kurt, and thank you so much, Diane, as well. And Diane, I also want to thank you for being a moderator of our solutions panel at the very important summit that's coming up on October 29 of this year. Peace begins at home. And that's really a good place for me to start, because so much of our work deals with making our world more humane. And I came across this, and I'll share a little bit of my background, very dramatically and with a lot of trauma in Vienna. When on Crystal Night, but even before then, after the Anschluss of Austria, my native Austria, to Nazi Germany, being really, from one day to the next, my whole world was rent asunder. My parents and I, we became hunted with license to kill because we were Jews. And so very early in my life, I had to ask myself questions that I think many of us have asked at some point in our lives. When we humans have such an enormous capacity for caring, for sensitivity, for nonviolence, and by the way, it's very strange, isn't it? And how contaminated even our language is with the domination elements we've inherited, that the term nonviolence includes violence, that we don't even have another word except peace, which, and this is one of the reasons we're holding the summit. Peace begins at home, in families, because we are not taught to connect the dots. And so we think peace is a matter of war and of terrorism and of crime, and we ignore the violence in homes. So my work, to make a long story short, when we humans have this enormous capacity for caring, for consciousness, for creativity, why has there been so much violence and so much insensitivity and really so much cruelty? And it wasn't until years later that I embarked on my multidisciplinary, cross-cultural, transhistorical, including our prehistory, research to try to answer these questions of whether there is an alternative. And I found that there is an alternative, which there was no name for, and which we cannot see. This is one of the ways in which really our work intersects, because, well, it intersects in so many ways, because the whole purpose of my research was to find a way of making our world more peaceful, more caring. Caring is one of the ways it intersects very definitely, because caring is in what I call domination rather than partnership systems, labeled feminine, right? And devalued. And when I wrote my book on economics, The Real Wealth of Nations, just putting caring, the subtitle is Creating a Caring Economics. Just putting caring and economics in the same sentence was a big thing. Now one of the trends towards partnership is that we hear a lot about caring today, don't we? Even in the business area. But there's so much to share, but what I discovered were patterns, configurations that kept repeating themselves cross-culturally and transhistorically in this whole systems research. And there were no names for them. So I called one model the domination model, and we're all familiar with that. It's top-down rule, be it in our families, be it in our institutions, a society, be it in economics, the growing gap between haves and have-nots, which you have addressed so much, Diane, because it doesn't have to be that way. We have an alternative, but we need to build it. And my work has really focused on identifying not only the symptoms and trying to put out the fires, which we have to do because domination systems are trauma factories beginning in violent families, in punitive families, which are essential to maintain domination systems. I mean, I don't know how many of you know that Putin, who himself had a very violent childhood, and who, of course, launched this invasion of Ukraine, he lowered the penalty for family violence in Russia because he gets the connection between a highly punitive, authoritarian, rigidly male-dominated, often violent family and that kind of a state. And so my work really is to look at root causes. And you have really, in your organizational work, been an exemplar, Diane, of what we need to do in order to move towards partnership, and care writ large is the key. And I know I've been very nonlinear in my answer to the question of how we intersect, but I hope I've made it very clear. Yes, we intersect a great deal in our work, and I really think that once we address these four cornerstones that are all interconnected, family and childhood, which we have been taught to marginalize, women and children don't count. So domestic violence, for example, gets marginalized. That's why I speak of family violence in the family, because one of the cornerstones is story and language. Terms like empowering reflect the trend, don't they, towards partnership? Because how can you use power to be empowering in a domination system? You can't. It's based on top-down control, isn't it? Backed up by fear, by violence, by trauma. So we've got these two cornerstones, but gender, which you also mentioned, it is so intertwined with all of this, and it's really built into the system. The ranking of the male form over the female form really very early provides a template for children to equate difference beginning with the difference between the male and female forms, but then going on to race, to religion, to ethnicity, to all kinds of differences, with dominating or being dominated, with being superior or inferior, with being served or serving. And of course, economics. We don't reward the work of caring for people. And we have two economic models, the capitalism and socialism. And really, the argument between both is a distraction, because what we need is a caring economics of partnerism that values and rewards the work of caring for people, starting at birth, which for both Smith and Marx was to be done for free, as was the norm in their time, by a woman in a male-controlled household. And we just can't solve our problems that way, can we? We have to bring about real change in the culture, and that starts with changes in consciousness.
Wow, thank you, Riane. And there's a few things that really stood out for me. And first of all, your service to humanity and the wisdom and the knowledge that you're bringing forward. And there's a saying: the first step into liberation is awareness. And I just wanted to personally say that to you by reading the book, The Chalice and the Blade. What you have specifically with the two terms. Culture of dominance and partnership cultures, you've opened up my level of understanding to look at current situations in a completely different way. And so the articulation that you're bringing forward and what you've also spoken about is the importance of the work, of the word. I just wanted to express my deep gratitude to you for really touching my heart and my soul with your work, and so looking at your two stellar careers side by side, we really see perhaps a parallel in your aspirations and achievements, and both of you have worked for decades to help co-create what we often call the world that works for all. So let's maybe look at it. And so what are each of you working on right now as the next stage of your contribution to this transformed world? And we're all trying to realize. So Diane, if I can start with you.
Sure. And thank you, Riane. That's very powerful what you said. So what I'm working on now is actually, I think, threefold. One is on a book on the power of light and how it can really hold the key to curing diseases, more fully connecting us to the non-local field and other realms of existence. And it answers questions like, what impact can light have on the transmutation of human development and our evolution, and many other questions. So that's something that I just feel like is very important for me to finish. I started it before COVID and I kind of put it aside, but it keeps like nudging me to finish this one book. So I feel very committed to that. The other project that's very dear to my heart is trying to get Global Oneness Day on the United Nations calendar. So I think that it has to start very young. I think children, again, Riane works with children, they really need to understand that we're one. You know, we come from one source. We're interconnected with everything on this planet and beyond. And that's really key. So we've been working very hard to get this resolution like put forth with the General Assembly. And I know, Michael, you said the other day, every day should be Global Oneness Day. So we're going to kind of start with this day, but then make sure that every day is about oneness. And the other piece that really I feel that's resonating very deeply with me as well is that one of our synergy circles is on contact and conscious evolution. And we have an inner focus group within that circle. And it's really about making contact in all different ways. So it could be making contact with nature. It could be making contact with maybe a loved one that passed on and is wanting to communicate with us. Maybe it's with other intelligences in the universe. You know, we have 2 trillion galaxies out there. So chances are we're not alone, right, in the universe. And so I do feel like that piece, all different forms of contact, is really key to our evolution, not only evolution, but to help us partner again with solving some of the greatest global challenges that we have right now that we're faced with. So I think that's really key. So those are my 3 areas that I feel very committed to at the moment.
Wow, thank you very much. Again, thank you for the dedication to transforming our planet and ushering a new, perhaps, era within humanity and your work within that. And Riane, given that we've gathered here in light of the initiatives and activities that you are centering on today, maybe tell us about those and what we can do together to achieve those goals that are part of this landscape that both of you have just been sharing about.
Well, I'll echo what Diane said, that every one of us can do something. We all have influence, and it starts really in our families, in our workplaces, in our nations, internationally, spiritually, in all ways. Because in another way that we're so connected, Diane, is in our work really recognizing our interconnection. Because science is beginning to show this now, that we are interconnected. 2 physicists just recently got a Nobel Prize for their work on entanglement, right? On the subatomic level. And that's what partnership is all about. Whereas domination is about in-group versus out-group thinking and acting. We recognize this, and the nations that have moved most towards the partnership model, including gender equity, including taking care of our planet, are of course Nordic nations, Finland, Sweden, Norway, which always score first in the international happiness reports, but they have also pioneered laws. And this takes me to the first area where I'm really very much involved in, to our summit, which I mentioned before. The summit Peace begins at home, and you can find out more about it by going to the website of Peace Begins at Home Summit.org. And please register for it, because we are not really taught to connect the dots. We are taught to fragment our consciousness. And so we don't connect, for example, what happens in families, despite all the research showing how foundational that is, the violence, the denial, the trauma, to all of us in accepting and being brought up to accept war, terrorism. It's just the way things are. And it doesn't have to be that way. Another thing that I'm working on, and I again want to thank Diane for being a moderator in one of the panels on solutions at the summit, which would be virtual, of course, and you can register at the website I just gave you. Another thing that I'm working on is a film about my work called, strangely enough, The Chalice and the Blade, which are really 2 symbols of power. The blade, of course, is very appropriate for a domination system. It's ultimately the power to take life, isn't it? Whether economically, whether with a sword, the blade, with a nuclear bomb. But there is also another kind of power. We don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, which is the chalice power, the power to nurture life, to illuminate life. And that relates, of course, to your work on light, doesn't it? Which so much of the ancient wisdom that's buried really in our religious scriptures, we've got to really sort the chaff from the grain, don't we, in our scriptures? And I'd love to talk to you about that, because that is a project that would be very dear to my heart. It could do so much good in helping people understand what happened. There's this core teaching of, if you will, feminine teachings of caring, caregiving, nonviolence, do unto others as you would do unto, have them do unto you. And then there's the domination overlay after millennia of prehistory, as the chalice and the blade shows, and so much now shows too. We oriented more to the partnership side of the partnership domination social scale. And then about only 5,000 to 10,000 years ago, which is a blip in evolutionary time, okay? Even in terms of our social evolution, we shifted to domination. So I really think that this is a very, very important project, and it's being done by an Emmy-winning couple of filmmakers, Daniel Glick and Lucia Ortega. And a third project that I'm very excited about is a prize for creative people, mainly in the film industry, but can be any form of art, any form of creativity, really. But so many people are addicted to social media, to film, to podcasts, etc. Now with AI coming, because really we have all the reason in the world to worry about AI if it's programs for domination, for control, for top-down rule, right? Like domination economics, like so-called neoliberalism, which is neither new nor liberal, by the way. But there we are. Language is really important. But this would be a prize to give to people who really read all of my work, because people don't read enough books these days, especially important books. And then just let imagination roll and substitute partnership stories for domination stories. We've got to do that, and it's happening, but it's happening much too slowly. So those are 3 initiatives that I am very excited about.
Well, thank you, Riane, for sharing and for your amazing work. And what I'm hearing is, I believe that we have not just an opportunity, but also a responsibility, each and one of us, to really take a really deep look at ourselves and look at the world around us, and really feel how we are experiencing that. And then through perhaps analyzing it also through the mind, through wisdom and knowledge and information, to make informed decision. And I believe we have a responsibility, all of us that are here currently assembled on this planet, to go past the traumas that we've inflicted upon ourselves, upon others that have been inflicted upon us, and to really start healing. And the healing cannot come through a culture of dominance. The healing can only come from a partnership or a culture of partnership. And it's literally by reaching out to one another, and it starts with our neighbors, it starts with our family, and like you said, it starts, peace begins at home. That's where really what we need to start to embrace. And so I commemorate you for your work, and I just want to thank you, Diane Williams and Riane Eisler, and what an exciting look into the lives of both of you. And specifically your vision of partnership consciousness and a global partnership culture. And I believe that this is really, really needed right now in this challenging times, and its culture of dominance. That's what I experience on a daily basis. And you're both such important pioneers in this work, so thank you for joining me and all the viewers here today, and thank you for inspiring us with your vision, and many blessings to you. And I bow deeply to both of you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Riane.
And thank you, Diane and Michael.